I remember the words of Gautam Buddha.
There are these 4 places, Anand, which the believing man should visit with feelings of reverence and awe.
Which are the 4?
The place, Anand, at which the believing man can say, "Here the Tathagat was born." The place, Anand, at which the believing man can say, "Here the Tathagat attained the supreme and perfect insight." The place, Anand, where the believing man can say, "Here was the kingdom of righteousness set foot on by the Tathagat." The place, Anand, where the believing man can say, "Here the Tathagat passed finally away in that utter passing away, which leaves nothing whatever to remain behind."
The mighty oceans washed the shores of this ancient land, which gave to the world one of the greatest sages, Gautam Buddha. I feel an urge to visit the holy places, as the Lord Buddha said. As I travel across this vast country, I feel that time has frozen in history. India spreads out from the rugged Himalayas in the north to the sandy dunes dominating its western boundaries. It seems that I have stepped into another world, into another time. Embedded deep in the heart of its soil is the history of one of the greatest cultures of the world, resonating with the message of love, of peace, of brotherhood. The message of Gautam Buddha. India has always fascinated travelers. Yun Sang and Fa Hian traveled extensively and chronicled ancient India for the world very meticulously. They wrote about the magnificent vihars, the Buddhist monasteries, and the awe-inspiring stupas. As I travel today, I come across the ruins of these ancient sites of Buddhist culture, which are even now being excavated by archaeologists all over India. These sites were the centers of Buddhist learning and culture. Monks and disciples lived here in the monasteries, worshipping the relics of the Buddha contained in the stupas. Each stone that is unearthed tells of how far and wide the doctrine of Buddhism had spread during the times of the Tathagat and later. So I must begin from the very beginning. From Lumbini in Nepal, the birthplace of Prince Siddharth Gautam, son of Shuddhodhan, the Shakya king at ancient Kapilvastu. Rows of colored flags flutter in the tranquil breeze near the holy pond where Maya Devi took a dip before she gave birth to Siddharth Gautam on a full moon day in Vaishak in 623 BC. Today, there exists a pillar of Ashok proclaiming in Brahmi script that the Buddha was born here. Unfortunately, its top portion is broken now. There is silence as devotees offer prayers at the place of birth. A number of stupas of the votive type and the ruins of a quadrangular monastic establishment with cells are also found at this site. Another monument is the flat-roofed Mayadevi temple. A certain calm settles upon the site as the day wears off. Close to Lumbini in Nepal is the ancient site of Kapilvastu. The bed of the once gushing river runs dry. Ruins excavated at this site stand mute witness to a glorious past. Archaeologists believed that this is the site of ancient Kapilvastu, the capital city of the Shakyas, home of Gautam Buddha. Excavations at the site have uncovered a 10-foot defense wall, the remains of what could have been the western and eastern gates, and roads leading into the citadel, paved with bricks and lined on either side by bastions. As I travel in the plains of Uttar Pradesh, I come upon the excavations of Piprawa in district Basti. Recent excavations at this site have led archaeologists to believe that Piprawa and its adjoining village of Gangwaria, with its numerous Buddhist findings, is the actual site of ancient Kapilvastu. This is supported by the inscriptions on the seals and lids of pots found here. Kanishk, a great patron of Buddhism, had built one of the largest vihars at Piprawa and renovated the main stup. Ruins still stand at this spot. The site of ancient Kapilvastu, the glorious center of Buddhist heritage, has always fascinated the believer and the scholar alike. It was here that Siddhartha Gautam spent 29 years of his life in the luxurious pampering of princely riches, away from all the cares and tribulations of the world. Then he was confronted by 3 ominous sights, one after another: old age, sickness, and death. They convinced him of the futility of worldly pleasures. They were to change his life forever, as well as that of millions of people to come, all over the world. At the age of 29, when he was a married youth with a son, he left his home and family to set himself on a long and tireless quest for salvation, for himself and for mankind. On a full moon day in the month of Vaishak, May, taking a bath in the Niranjan river, Siddhartha Gautam sat under the Bodhi tree. Here, under this auspicious Bodhi tree, Shakyamuni Gautam attained Nirvana, divine salvation. On the sacred tree, flags flutter in the eternal breeze. The Tibetan pilgrim Dharmavasim visited this site in the 13th century. He refers to the place as Vajrasan, or the diamond seat. This is the exact spot where Buddha attained supreme wisdom. A gilded Buddha smiles upon the visitors from a niche in the wall of the temple, while his footsteps, carved in stone just below the platform, are a source of veneration for them. This is where the story of Prince Siddhartha ended and the saga of the Buddha began. Another early remnant is represented by the promenade or chankram. This marks the sacred spot where the Buddha spent the third week after enlightenment, meditatively walking up and down. What one can see is a brick platform with representations of lotuses, which are believed to have blossomed from his footsteps. The holiest of holy places associated with Buddhism, Bodh Gaya, is situated in the Gaya district of Bihar. Ashok refers to this place as Sambodhi. I bow my head in worship before the most celebrated monument at Bodh Gaya, the main Mahabodhi temple. Hyun Sang ascribes the construction of this temple to Ashok. The present form of the temple structure seems to be a result of restorations and renovations through the centuries. The shrine is unique amongst Indian temples, for instead of the usual curvilinear contours, it has a spire in the shape of a towering pyramid. Another striking feature of the Mahabodhi temple are the 4 turrets, each arising at the base of the main spire at each of the 4 corners. As I step inside the temple, it seems that I have stepped before Tathagat himself. The air is pervaded with his presence. There is silence, peace, and the presence of the Buddha is almost palpable as I look at the large, serene, gilded image of the Buddha in the Bhumi Sparsh, or earth-touching pose, his hand touching the earth. Legend has it that the Buddha called the earth to witness the austerities he practiced to attain enlightenment. Around the temple are numerous remains. Amongst the most important are portions of the stone railing. These belong to 2 different periods, the earlier going back to about the 2nd century BC and the other to the Gupta period. The medallions show interesting carvings, especially the lotus. The Ratnaghar is a small, interesting shrine which stands close by the Mahabodhi temple. The Buddha is said to have spent a week at this spot in contemplation, while rays of 5 different colors emanated from his body. Close to the Mahabodhi, within the surrounding walls, stands another small temple, the Animesh Lochan. It is at this spot where the Buddha stood gazing at the Bodhi tree in gratitude after he had attained enlightenment. In the corner, a snake can be seen protecting the Buddha in meditation. This is the Muchkund Sarovar. It is said that once the Buddha was in meditation when there was a great storm accompanied by rain. The snake king Muchkund cast his hood above the Buddha's head and protected him. There is a long history of foreign visitors who came to Bodh Gaya to pay their salutations. A large bell from the King of Burma finds the prestigious position of being in front of the main temple. Over the centuries, a number of devotee stupas have come up in the precincts. The lure of Bodh Gaya is great for the devotees. They come from all over the world to pray and meditate at the feet of the Buddha in this blessed land. They come in search of peace and salvation. A meditation center provides them a religious sanctuary where they pray, meditate, and become one with Gautam the Buddha. Temples and monasteries of nearly all countries where Buddhism has flourished have come up near and around the Mahabodhi temple, forming an integral part of Bodh Gaya. The Thai temple and monastery is startling in the sunlight. Gold lacquered tiles, sloping terraces, roofs, curved dragon forms, making graceful silhouettes against the sky. And inside, a magnificent Buddha with curly hair tied in a knot on top of his head. The Japanese have built a colossal Buddha, which is by far the most imposing and awe-inspiring image at Bodh Gaya. The Buddha in all his glory, giving the message of peace, love, piety, a message from the land of his birth to the world. I leave for Benares, the oldest city of India. nearly 8 kilometers from this ancient seat of Indian culture, is Sarnath. In medieval inscriptions, the place is referred to as the Dharma Chakra Parivartan Vihar. It was here that Tathagat expounded the Four Noble Truths.
The first truth is that the worldly existence is full of dukh, the sorrow. The second truth is that its cause is samudaya, the worldly attachments. The third truth is that by nirodh or negation of these attachments, the emancipation from misery or nirvana can be achieved. And the fourth truth is that for achieving the nirvana, there exists a way, the Arya Ashtangik Marg.
Sarnath was also known as Mrigdav because herds of deer roamed freely here, as they had been given immunity by the king of Benares, moved to compassion by the spirit of self-sacrifice of the Buddha. It is not unlikely that this is the same as the Mool Gandhakuti referred to in inscriptions of the Gupta and later periods. It is a massive structure surrounded by a cluster of votive stupas. The exterior plan of the temple assumes the cruciform shape in view of the entrance porch on the east and the 3 chapels projected from the temple wall. As described by Hyun Sang, the main shrine was crowned by an amalaka, and it enshrined an image of the Buddha in the preaching pose. Of the numerous antiquarian remains at Sarnath, the Ashokan pillar is the most magnificent. Only the lower portions of the pillar, with the verdict of the monarch, are in situ now. On the pillar is inscribed an edict warning the monks and nuns against creating a schism in the Buddhist order. In later periods, 2 more records were inscribed on the pillar. To Ashok is attributed another stup, the Dharmarajika stup, consisting of a hemispherical dome of brickwork. The dome was surmounted by umbrellas set within a square railing. Most imposing of the ruins at Sarnath is the Thammek Stup, situated at the southeast corner of the site. It is a solid structure of cylindrical shape. Its lower portion, constituting the drum, is built of massive blocks of stone, but the upper part is a brick construction. The lower section is relieved by 8 projecting bays, each with a large niche, originally containing an image. This lower section has a broad band of carved ornamentation of intricate geometric patterns with floral arabesques above and below. While its present stone facing with ornamental carvings was put up about the Gupta period, the original stup was in mud and brick. While boring a shaft in the center of the stup in search of relics down to the foundations, the noted archaeologist Cunningham found the remains of an earlier stup of Mauryan bricks. This might have been the stup raised by Ashok to mark the spot where the Buddha preached his law for the first time to the 5 monks. The first sermon comprises a unique and frank intellectual statement of the basic problem of life and its solution. In view of the sanctity and importance of Sarnath, it continued to be a leading center of Buddhism throughout the centuries.
Usually Thai people think that India is the great land, that the land that give the Lord Buddha to the world. We are Thai Buddhism, we feel the grateful to this land. And in the same time, because of the Buddha is the son of this land, so we feel that Thailand and India is the, we have the friendship, we have the close relationship with India because of the Lord Buddha. This place it become the holy place for the Buddhists across the world. When we come to this place, we feel happy. We feel like we sit and we talk. We meet the Lord Buddha. That is our impression. Therefore, every auspicious day, we are Thai students at Banaras Hindu University. We come and pray to the Lord Buddha at this place.
I came from USA and just visit here. And because this one is want to see the Buddha, that means I have to go to the Indian. That's the land of Buddhism. The Sarnath is the Buddha gave it the first sermon. So when we remember Buddha, so we come here for the worship. And we love this place, and not only for the worship, and the environment is very nice. And the Indians still keep the culture, so I'm glad to see that.
Near the excavation site, through the trees, one can see the spires of the temple of Sri Lanka. This temple, made on ethnic Sri Lankan architectural lines, is very popular with the visitors. It is a most outstanding example of craft and architecture. The temple is also unique for the wall paintings, which record the important incidents in the life of the Tathagat. The doctrine of Buddhism spread well beyond the shores of India. King Ashok sent his son Mahendra to the neighboring country of Sri Lanka with the teachings of the Buddha. A beautiful image of the Buddha is set in the serene atmosphere of the temple.
Sarnath is very, very sacred place for the Buddhists, Like a Sarnath, Buddha Gaya, and Lumbini in Kushinagar. This whole place is very important place for the Buddhist people, So all the Buddhist pilgrims who are coming from far from area like Ladakh, Sikkim, Bhutan, and Tibetan people, all they are coming to here to visit this place, and they give it to devotions and then make a round to the stupas, Therefore, they believe, they have accumulated some bad sins in, and then they remove their sins slowly, Therefore, the many thousands of people every year and every time is coming here, many thousands of people to here to visit this place, So similarly here, not only this one, like here set up so many other temples, like a Japanese temple, like a Tibetan temple, like some Thailand temple and Sri Lanka temple. All there, the Buddhist temple, they are set up on every place in Sarnath. So now, this time, Sarnath becomes a very huge, like one of the international place in here, because all the people from the world coming to here, and they set up these monasteries,
The chanting at the Japanese temple fills my heart with reverence and awe. This is one of the most beautiful temples that I have seen in my journey here. Its intricate craft and Japanese motifs transport me to another land, another time. The Japanese have special feelings for India. The atmosphere in their temple goes well beyond words to express these feelings.
ブッダの悟りを開いた地っていうことで、うちが一応仏教なもんですから、一度見てみたかったので、ここの場所に来ました。
インドっていうのは割と日本では結構まだ秘境の地っていうか文化をかなり違ってで、本当に本ではたくさんそういうふうなことが書いてある、すごく怖い国とか、書いてあるんですけど、本当はどうなのかっていうこととか、自分でこう違う文化に交わることで自分はどんな国に住んでいるのかとか、自分自身がどういう人間かっていうことが分かるんじゃないかと思って、それで訪れてみました。
My journey brings me to the valley, which was once the seat of the powerful Magad Empire. This sleepy hamlet of Rajgir has been witness to some of the most important sermons of the Buddha. The once ancient capital of the powerful Magad Empire, Rajgir was known as Rajgriha, meaning the home of royalty. It was also called Basumati, Giriviraj, and Kushagrapur. The modern village of Rajgir is situated on a part of the site of the new Rajgriha, which was protected by a massive wall of earth resembling an irregular pentagon in shape with a circuit of nearly 5 kilometers. For the Buddhists, the Giddakot hill is amongst the most sacred because it was here that Lord Buddha spent most of his time in meditation and in preaching to his disciples. A small statue of the Buddha marks the spot where he sat while meditating. Lord Buddha spent several rainy seasons, Varshavas, in this area, spending time on Giddakot hill and preaching to his disciples. It was here that King Bimbisar became his disciple. Giddakot has several caves which must have provided shelter and a home to the Buddha in the rainy season. It is said that King Bimbisar was confined by his son Ajatashatru at this spot, which is known as Bimbisar Jail. From the strategic location of his place of confinement, he was able to see Lord Buddha preaching at Giddakot. About 150 meters to the north of the modern temples and mosques near the hot springs, a large tank has been identified. This has been identified as the tank which finds mention in Pali and Sanskrit texts as the tank near the Venuvan or the bamboo grove spoken of by Chinese scriptures. The favorite retreat of Lord Buddha, the Jivakvan, has been excavated at the base of the Giddakot hill. It was here that the physician Jivak treated Lord Buddha when he was injured by his cousin Devadatta. The Saptaparni caves are set high up in the hills and are very well preserved. It is said that the first Buddhist council, attended by 500 monks, was held at this spot. This is supported by Pali texts. Every October, on the full moon day, Buddhist monks gather at this sacred spot, which now holds the relics of the Buddha, to pray and worship the Lord. A beautiful, large, white stupa, situated on top of the high Ratnagiri hill, is witness to one of the most auspicious prayer ceremonies. The ancient site of Shravasti is identified with the present-day villages of Sahet and Mahet in the Gonda and Behraich districts of Uttar Pradesh. The Jetvan, the remains of which can be seen today, was a favorite resort of the Buddha, who spent the largest number of Varshavas here and delivered many important sermons. A merchant, Anantapindika, built a monastery in the park of Prince Jet after paying him as many gold coins as covered the land. He then donated the monastery to Lord Buddha. Remains of the Jetvan show stupas, monasteries and temples. The stupas are attributed mostly to the Kushan period, while the temples are mainly from the Gupta period. Shravasti rose to fame when Lord Buddha performed a great miracle here. He displayed the multiplied forms of himself going up to the highest heavens. It was at Shravasti that the Lord converted the robber Angulimal. The latter would waylay people and cut off their fingers for his garland. For those who visit India to see the places of Buddhist importance, Shravasti assumes great importance.
We are glad to come here to study about story of Buddhists, and we can see everything since the place was born, the study of the place, and the Buddhism teach us the truth of everything. Okay.
Vaishali was once the capital city of the Lichavis, one of the earliest republics of the world. Lord Buddha visited this place 3 times in his life and chose to declare his approaching Nirvana and delivered his last sermon at Vaishali. A century later, Vaishali became the venue for the second Buddhist council. Emperor Ashok erected one of his famous pillars at Kulhwa to mark the spot of the last prayer meeting. It was at Vaishali that Lord Buddha performed a miracle and was presented with a bowl of milk and honey by the monkeys. The story of Vaishali is not complete without mention of Amrapali, the exceptionally beautiful and gifted courtesan. It is said that she presented the Buddha with a mango grove and became a Buddhist nun. The noted travelers Fahian and Hyun Sang, who visited Vaishali in the early 5th and 7th centuries BC, have paid rich tributes to the glory of this place, which is said to have derived its name from King Vishal. Emperor Ashok, the great follower of Buddhism, erected a beautiful sandstone pillar at Kolhwa. It marks the place of the last sermon by Lord Buddha. The pillar, with a lotus capital, is surmounted by a lion. Although there is no inscription on it, the pillar has the design and craftsmanship which is unique to the Ashokan pillars. The Lichavis erected a stup over their share of the relics of Lord Buddha after his passing. The Buddha Stup 1 is now in a dilapidated condition. This was originally a mud stup of smaller dimensions, assigned to about the 5th century BC. In the ensuing 2.5 centuries, under the Mauryas and later under the Shungas and Kushans, the stup was enlarged by brick encasing and by raising the plinth and height of the stup. The excavations have unearthed a number of antiquities, among which the relic casket, containing ashes mixed with earth, is the most remarkable discovery. A beautiful stup in pristine white now dominates the skyline of Vaishali. The relics of Lord Buddha are enshrined at the top of the stup. Situated on the south side of the coronation tank, it forms an imposing structure. Go now, Ananda, and enter into Kushinagar, and inform the Mallas, the boatmen of Kushinagar, saying, this day, in the last watch of the night, the final passing away of the Tathagat will take place. The importance of Kushinagar was twofold. The Buddha passed away here, and he was also cremated here. A little away from the main site is the Ramabhar Stup. It is believed to represent the spot of the cremation of the Buddha. The temple stands on a plinth supporting the stup. The ruins of the stup and the reclining Nirvan statue were discovered in 1876. The statue measures about 6.1 meters in length and is executed out of one sandstone block. It represents the dying Buddha, reclining on his right side with his face turned towards the west. It is placed on a brick pedestal with stone posts at the corners and was once faced with stone slabs on all sides. The Buddha's teachings came as a great source of moral strength to the people. It was one religion which called upon man to unequivocally trust himself, to raise himself by his own exertion, to govern and control and form himself. At a small distance from Bodh Gaya are the Barabar Caves, one of the known Buddhist sites of this area. Situated in the rugged terrain of the Vindhyas, the rock, of solid granite, looks like a huge whale seated above the hills. Cut into the heart of this rock are several monastic cells with rectangular chambers and doors leading into other cells. The dark cells provided the monks with shelter when they stopped traveling in the rainy season. From the simple monastic cells cut into rocks to elaborately designed and conceived sites, India was vibrant with the message of the Buddha. The sanctity of this place lies in the fact that Sariputra, the famous disciple of the Buddha, was born here, and Nagarjun, the celebrated Mahayana scholar of the 2nd century AD, was the high priest of Nalanda. From the accounts of the Chinese pilgrim Hyun Sang, who not only visited Nalanda but also studied here, we come to know that in the 7th century AD, Nalanda was the most stupendous monastic establishment on the one hand and a great seat of learning on the other. The archaeological remains of the monastic establishments, the celebrated Nalanda Mahavihar, which comprise the university and the edifices, are vast and extensive indeed. As many as 11 monasteries have been uncovered by archaeologists. A number of temples and stupas of various sizes and forms add to the antiquarian remains of the grandeur that was Nalanda. The greatest patron of Buddhism, King Ashoka, built a stupa and erected a pillar at Sachi. All kinds of Buddhist architectural forms can be seen here. Although the monument at Sachi now forms one of the most magnificent and perfect examples of early Buddhist art in India, the site seems to have no apparent connection with the traditional history of Gautam Buddha. According to Sri Lankan chronicles, King Ashoka was married to the daughter of a merchant from Vidisha. His son, Mahendra, was on a mission to Sri Lanka when he halted at the spot where the monument stands. Sachi remained a great center of Buddhism for more than 1,000 years. This is evidenced by the numerous monuments belonging to all eras from the 3rd century BC to the 12th century AD. 3 stupas at Sachi stand out as the most imposing. Stupa number 1, originally built of bricks, is known as the Great Stupa. Built in the time of King Ashoka, it was later enlarged and faced with stone, perhaps a century later, when the massive balustrade and the 4 imposing gateways at the cardinal sides were also added. Stupa number 3 of the 2nd century BC is known from an inscription of its relic casket to contain the mortal remains of Sariputra and Maudgalyayan, the two foremost disciples of the Buddha. Stupa number 2, also of the same period, does not have gateways. It is important as a Buddhist shrine because it contained the body relics of 10 Buddhist teachers of at least 3 generations, including Kashyap Goth and Majjhima, who belonged to the period of Ashoka. The relief sculptures in the railings and gateways at Sachi show great advancement in style and technique. The style of the intricate work indicates that they were made by ivory carvers from Vidisha. The monasteries at Sachi are generally designed on the familiar plan: an open brick-paved courtyard with an enclosing veranda, and beyond the latter, a range of cells. All these monasteries belong to the period between the 6th and the 12th centuries AD. Of the temples at Sachi, the most important is temple number 17, datable to the Gupta period. An unpretentious shrine of modest dimensions, it consists of a flat-roofed square chamber with a pillared portico in front. Its structural propriety, symmetry, proportions, and application of plane surfaces for a restrained visual effect compare with the best architectural expressions of classical Greece. As I leave Sachi, my heart swells with an emotion which fills my soul with elation. The journey has been a revealing experience. I feel that I have set out on another journey, a journey from within.